Hi, I'm Adhithi. I'm an artist and animator from Chennai. Yeah, as she said, some of you might know me through my Amachi animation, the one who slaps and says, kisses you on the face. You might have seen that. I've been exploring animation for almost 2 years now, and I've learned quite a few interesting things, which I will be talking about today. Um, and as I kept practicing, I also documented my work on Instagram, which opened a lot of doors for work opportunities. So I got to work on music videos, some brand collabs, and also some commercials. But today I will just be talking about why I love this medium so much and why I personally think it's the most superior medium out there. And yeah, moving images as a medium is pretty broad. It includes all sequences, all kinds of image sequences, from drawings to photographs to stop motion. And as a medium, it's very flexible that way. So uh, I just think it's really broad that way. And I don't think I'm trying to hard sell animation because I'm an animator myself, but you'll see. Um, so it's a dynamic form of art, and it's a lot of hard work. And as an animator, I've felt that the process is super exhausting and laborious. Sometimes I'll take one entire day to finish one scene. I'll just be glued to the screen. You know how when I use my Wacom, hunched over, just glued to the screen for hours and hours. But the first magical moment an animator can experience is, next slide, the play button. Once you're done and you play your animation, you just see all your characters spring to life. It's it was really magical for me the first time when I tried. Um, it's how do I say? Uh, there are drawings that walk. Next slide. There are drawings that walk, and then which is already amazing. And then to take it a next step further, there are drawings that walk and talk. To take it a step even further, animation lets you make a series of drawings that walk, talk, and think. I mean, just think about it. How cool is it to see a series of images you've just drawn go through an actual thinking process? You feel like you've created life. You also feel like, next slide, Thanos. Because he has all the infinity stones. You have the power stone, you get to play with space, reality, and whatnot, right? Um, but since it's a powerful tool for visual storytelling, it really dates back to cave paintings. I didn't even know about that. I recently read about this somewhere. I was shocked. So these are cave paintings that were found in France. This panel shows a pride of lions with a feeling of movement, drawn with a feeling of movement, and this is an animal with 4 pairs of legs. There could be an animal with 4 pairs of legs, but I don't buy that. This, I kind of think it reads as an animal in motion. And next slide. And then there were Greeks who decorated their pots with human figures that progressively changed. So when there was a spinning pot, it gave them a sense of motion. And I think the one ruling principle with animation is persistence of vision, which is the fact that our eyes retain an image for a fraction of a second, even after the image is gone. So I think if this wasn't a thing, moving images wouldn't have existed, animation wouldn't have existed, movies, any kind of moving image wouldn't have existed. So next slide. So based on this principle, there were so many optical experiments and devices that came about back in the day. I will just quickly brush through these interesting devices. This is the thaumatrope. Next slide. This is the phenakistoscope. I don't know how many of you have seen Jacob Collier's music video. Okay, so he experimented with this, so that was interesting. Next slide. This is the zoetrope. Next slide. And then the legendary flip book, which the classical animation method is kind of based on, drawing multiple sequences on paper and quickly running through them. Next slide. So this was a flip book that I found recently at home. I apparently made this when I was 7. It's pretty dark. Yeah, next slide. And then came the entire roster of animated films from Steamboat Willie, Snow White, Tom and Jerry, and then there was the stop motion version of King Kong. There was so many other movies that came out, and that was the golden age of animation. Okay, so I didn't really go to animation school. I'm self-taught for the most part. So ever since I was really fascinated about this medium, I began keenly studying other artists' works. And I was observing the expressions and the timing and spacing in the sequences. Sometimes when I would watch a movie, I would keep pausing each scene to see how they made that, seamless transition, because a seamless transition is very challenging for an animator. And if my sister's watching the movie with me, she'd get super annoyed. It's like, what is there in the scene? Why are you pausing to see? Like, it'll just be two water blobs joining into one or something like this. As simple as that. Yeah, I think it's difficult to achieve that seamlessness, so I would keep pausing to see. I began seeing everyday life in its own minuteness. Like just a simple thing. When you put both your arms on either side and make a head turn quickly, that's when people will hardly notice that you blink in between when you turn. And your head goes a little, downwards. So, like, tiny things like that. So there were things that pushed me to like constantly observe everyday life like that. And speaking of detail, caricaturizing is a huge component of animation. It's not just enlarging or shrinking features associated with physical appearance, but also something like this, where you pick a moment in the action sequence and blow it up and try to intensify it. So say if it's a punch in this example, you want to make the punch feel more harder, you want to make it feel more intense, so you try to either incorporate it in a different style and try a way to caricaturize that. So next slide. So exaggeration along with motion have been added values. This is another example. This is something I made. So I was thinking about how I spend a lot of time on my phone, and I had to exaggerate it. I spend so much time, so much that I get sucked into the phone. So that so much factor is what decides your exaggeration, the parameter. Next slide. Yeah, appeal. So, just look at that kid. If you don't melt looking at this kid, I don't know what will make you, smile. It's just a normal, natural gesture, but the way they've stylized it makes it a whole lot more mesmerizing, right? But again, when you talk about caricaturization, there's always this question of how much realism you want to achieve in your drawings. of course, we have like realism advancements with motion capture and CGI, and there's really cool texturing techniques today. So, how much realism, how real you want your art to be is completely a matter of choice. Uh, and there was this animation dictum that more than trying to reach a level of realism, we have to try to achieve believability, to make the viewer think that the imaginative characters you've created are real, they're believable. So, of course, Avatar, as much as I think this style has created that sense of believability, Avatar has also done that. It was a visual treat, right? So, this is a scene from Kill Bill, the animated sequence, which I later found was inspired by Alavandan's animated sequence. It's Kamala Hassan's. So this was, I started studying this sequence and found that they've tried to use a graphic equivalent to a realistic action. In real, the action is actually very gory. Like he just takes a knife and like spins. It's a brutal murder sequence. But if they had shown that in real, how disturbing would it have been, right? Animation, like it just lets you give an alternate, visual appeal to it, and yeah, one second. I remember reading a quote quote by Chuck Jones, who is a very renowned Warner Bros. Animation director. He said, even when you mute your animation, you should be able to tell what's going on. I don't deny sound is also a very important factor, but even when you mute your animation, you should be able to tell what's going on in the scene, which goes on to show how good your visual storytelling is. He was, by the way, the one who worked on Spirit, this movie. It's actually one of my first movies when I watched it back in the day that had a massive impact on me. The biggest thing that I love about this film is the fact that they made the horses use their own sounds and body language to communicate. You might have seen a lot of other animated movies where they make the animals talk like humans, which is kind of unnatural. So this was really special about this movie. Next slide. Another example is WALL-E. WALL-E uses no meaningful dialogue. They had to convey the setting, which is a single planet, the problem being, piles of trash, and the solution as well. Everything without explicitly telling the audience about it, with no explicit narration. And one good thing about the character design is that it makes you believe the robot has a soul, right? You begin to sympathize with WALL-E after a point, even though it's a machine. This was another animation I made during lockdown. I captioned it, "Wearing masks isn't new to us." So, using motion as a tool, and actually art in general, has sort of let me be surreal, because, say, I want an actual, I want to actually draw an identity mask. I can do. Art has no limitations. You get to be surreal with it. You can use any kind of metaphor you want, and that way, depth, drawing with depth and trying to visualize even a complex subject. Although it's been challenging, it's been possible with art, and motion just adds, value to it. Oh, by the way, before that, the while we use the visual medium, like Wally, for example, where we try to communicate with no words. I'm a visual person, no word, not a word person, but whatever. Um, uh, there are, at the same time, on the other end, we have, like, all these art galleries and exhibitions which have paintings and a huge description right next to them. There were some times when I read the description entirely and looked back at the art and I couldn't really feel anything. I personally think art has to do the talking by itself. It's subjective, the definition of art, but if you don't resonate with this, it's fine. But I really think uh, if you have something to convey, or if you have something to express, and the canvas is your language, is a description really your choice? So, yeah. And, sorry, back, sir. The previous one. The previous, yeah. Another amazing thing that I like about animation, which separates it from live action, is that you get to do things that a camera cannot. In This is a show I found on Netflix. It's called The Midnight Gospel. It was mind-blowing. When you see it, you might think it's a show for kids, but it's actually an adult animated show. So that really goes on to show how animation as a medium, I think it's been long broken that it's meant for kids, and there are so many extensively experimental work in adult genres that are coming out. So this is one such example where this is the character who travels through trippy worlds, raising a lot of existential questions about life, death, philosophy, and everything in between. There's also another show called Love, Death and Robots, if you like to check out. Next slide.
L'histoire se répète à l'infini, comme si on n'avançait pas, jusqu'à ce que l'on accepte l'importance du vide, qui nous lie, qui nous sépare, au centre du vortex.
I forgot to mention, by the way, I will be showing some work that I find inspirational. I follow a bunch of these studios and artists on Instagram, and they just push the extent, of animation and how much you can do with it. This, I think it's a, like a collage format where they just cue image cutouts, and they've just played with it. I really loved it. Just take a look. Next slide. The 2D medium specifically gives you a lot of freedom to be fluid this way. That So, uh, yeah, this is the last one. One second. Yeah. Yeah, so these are just some works that I found inspirational, and it really is big proof to the fact that as humans we are ambitious. We wanna dream, think big, and try to. We're aspiring to reach the unreachable, right? And sometimes we want to escape reality and try to teleport ourselves to um, a different mind space or even an imaginary world. So animation actually lets you do that, and that's what separates it from live action, of course, because the camera captures whatever's in front of you, but animation captures nothing. It tries to invent, and instead of imitating life, it creates life. So yep, I will just end by showing you some of my work that I've done. And so this was based on an extract I was reading. It's by Earl Nightingale. He said, "We become what we think about." So essentially, your thoughts turn into actions, right? So it's that process where we think of something and we turn into that. So this is one visual interpretation. Next slide. Yeah, this is cross-pollinating ideas. I recently made this. Yeah. I said, "Read me," and my mom commented, "I've always been doing that. I've always been reading you." I was like, "Cool. This is what I do every day." So I this is for my sister's song. I've been working on a music video for her song. It's not released yet, but I just decided to show some snippets of it today to you guys. It's a song about the journey of life that's paralleled with the ocean's behavior. So this is the character I made for that, which is an ocean head because it juxtaposes the ocean's behavior and human life. So this is just some snippets. Next, this this is another music video that I also worked on. There are a bunch of music videos that I worked on that are still in line and waiting to be released. This is also another video, just a few snippets for you to see. Next. I will end it with the party. So, thank you. I lost my grandmom a few years ago. So ever since then, I didn't really find a way to, sort of let out that heaviness. So whenever I kind of missed her, I would make a caricature of her or sculpt her. I even tried sculpting her. It was a scary process. I shouldn't have done that. I tried sculpting her, and then as it got more real, it got really weird because to see her again in a three-dimensional form, yeah. But I tried sculpting her, and then 2 years later, out of nowhere, I just tried animating a party. Uh, to see her behavior come to life. So she always used to do that, that kind of kiss, and it was really wholesome to recreate that. So that is it. And I later found out that a lot of people resonated with this character. It blew up, and people sent me a lot of messages about their party and reminiscing about the times with their party, and it was really wholesome. It was this whole entire emotional grandma cloud going on for a few days, so that was awesome. So yeah, I think that's it. Is there another slide? No, we're done. Cool. Thank you for your time. Uh, I kind of rushed today because this is my first time here, so itchy nervous.